Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the sedra of Vayigash. And this very dramatic sedra is the penultimate sedra, the portion that we read in the book of Bereshis, the 11th of the 12 sedras that comprise the book of Bereshis. And the whole of the book of Bereshis has sometimes been referred to as the book of, among other things, the dysfunctional family, as we chart the various crises that happen between, as soon as the first family is created, Cain and Abel, and then we sort of follow it down when there are siblings. We have Yitzchak and Yishmael, and we have Yaakov and Esau, and it just seems to follow a pattern that there are these tensions within the family, and perhaps that's why the title of the book of the dysfunctional family was applied to the book of Bereshis. But I think that the words in this sedra of Vayigash, and in comparing certain phrases that occur here and elsewhere in Tanakh, has actually opened up the possibility of thinking about the book of Bereshis as being a master tutorial in finding and expressing true love and understanding what love means. So that's a complete different perspective on everything that we have learnt so far, all the relationships that we have witnessed over the period from creation to this point, when Yehuda stands in front of the viceroy of Egypt at that stage, unknown to him as that this is actually Yosef, his brother, his long lost brother. And I think that we have the key, and this is a very, very dramatic way, but a very clear way to understand that we are being taught real time what love means, how to show love, and really redefine love for ourselves, as we think perhaps we are a bit contaminated with this modern concept of love, as whether it's a spontaneous emotion, and whether it's something that can't be commanded. You can't command me to love, and really we are having to close the book on that way of thinking about love. Perhaps stop thinking about love in a romantic way, but think about love in the deepest of relationships that we build between ourselves and other people, and ourselves and Hashem. And it's all in this week's sedra of Vayigash. And I think it's possibly even woven into the title of the sedra Vayigash, which means "and he drew close." And I think what we're doing is drawing close towards true love. And within the words and the events of the sedra, there are two clues that perhaps can help us. And the clues revolve around the words kesher and shema. So let's get started and let's delve. And the word kesher is, we find that when Yehuda is making the impassioned plea to the viceroy of Egypt that Benjamin, the brother in whose sack the goblet was found, should not be kept as a prisoner because of the dramatic consequences that this will have on their aged father, and this would effectively kill him. And we see that Yehuda uses the phrase, and this is in chapter 44, we start with verse 30, and Yehuda is describing what will happen if Yosef carries out his threat and keeps Benjamin behind as a prisoner slave. Va'ata kavoi el avdecha avi. And now, if I come to your servant, my father, v'hanar einena itonu, and the youth is not with us, v'nafsho kushura b'nafsho, his soul is so bound up with his soul, v'haya kiroso, and it will happen that when he sees ki ein hanar, that the youth is gone, v'mes, he will die. And Yehuda is phrasing, is is articulating the reality that the soul of Yaakov, the soul of his father, is bound up, kushuro, nafsho, the actual words are nafsho, kushuro, benafsho. It's as if they are two strips of leather or two pieces of string that are woven together. Their souls are so close, so bound, that if Yehuda's father is going to have to confront the reality that Binyamin is not coming back, that is going to kill him. And I think the way this really displays the deepest love imaginable is that when Yehuda says these words, he is not saying them from a point of jealousy or from a point of anger. And if we flash back to the jealousy and the anger that was aroused when Yaakov was displaying that his soul, Yaakov's soul, was bound up with another son, with Yosef. And at that point, although everybody was much younger and more immature, the emotions that were aroused by the reality of one soul being bound so tightly, being connected so tightly to another, were very negative emotions. And the events that ensued in their wake were catastrophic events, were events that brought great pain and hardship onto everybody around. But here we have that same reality of one soul being bound so tightly to another soul, and yet Yehuda is okay with that. And not only okay with that, but Yehuda is prepared to make that ultimate sacrifice and to say, take me instead, so that these two tightly connected souls can continue to be tightly connected. I don't want to jeopardize that. I don't want to spoil that. I want to give myself instead. And I think that this is the display of the deepest love that is imaginable. And it's very interesting to note a connection that Rabbi Foreman points out in Aleph Beta, the website that he uses to bring various insights into the sedras and into the various other topics of interest, and the phrase, this concept of a soul being bound together with another soul, is something that we find in the book of the prophet Shmuel, Shmuel Aleph, the first book of Samuel, and we can probably guess that the only other relationship that would be described in this way is the relationship between David and Yonasan, King David and Jonathan, the son of King Shaul. And this is chapter Shmuel Aleph, chapter 18, and it's verse 1, but we'll go to the preceding verses from the end of chapter 17. And these verses describe what happens when David, not yet David HaMelech, but David the young man, a young boy even, is successful in his fight with Goliath, and he brings the head of Goliath to King Saul. And we take it up, chapter 17, verse 57. Ukushov David mehakos es hapelishti. And it was when David returned from smiting the Philistine, Vayikach also Avner, Vayaviehu lifnei Shaul, and Avner took him and brought him before Shaul, Varosh hapelishti biyodo, and the head of the Philistine was in his hand. Vayomer elav Shaul, this is chapter 18, verse 1, and Shaul said to him, Ben mi ata, whose son are you? Hanar, young lad. Vayomer David ben Avdecha Yishai beis halachmi. I am the son of your servant Jesse from Bethlehem. Vayehi kachalose ledaber el Shaul. And it was when he finished to speak to Shaul, Benefesh Yehonason Nikshara Benefesh David, and the soul of David and the soul of Jonathan became attached to the soul of David. And so we have this same phrase that there is one soul, nefesh, koshor lenefesh, one soul being closely bound with another soul. And we have a similar display of total selflessness with this relationship as well, because Yehonason, Jonathan, is the son of Shaul, so he is the next in line, as it were, to inherit the crown from his father. And so when this young David comes, very successful in vanquishing the dreaded foe of Goliath, that really Yehonason, Jonathan, is really most threatened by this young, very successful, inverted commas, new person, new kid on the block. And instead of being jealous and destructive and defensive, Yehonason is totally embracing. There is this bond, there is this love, there is this this not feeling threatened by the fact that somebody else maybe in line for a higher position, maybe valued more, loved more. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And in so doing, whether it is Yehuda in the Sedra of Vayigash, whether it is Yehonason in the first book of Samuel, they are showing all of us that this really is true love. And I think that when we look at the word kesher, we can perhaps gain an understanding of what love means. And it doesn't mean that we have to erase our own personalities and just go on the floor like a doormat. I think this word kesher is giving us a clue or a direction in how to achieve this kind of relationship with people around us. And kesher, I think, is a connection, is a communication. And we have the posuk in Anim Zmiras that we sing. Some people have the tradition to sing it before reading of the Torah on the Shabbos morning services. Sometimes it is sung at the end of the Musaf, the additional prayer on Shabbos. But this is a hymn that is sung, and one of the stanzas is Kesher Tefillin Hera Leonov, that the knot, the connection of the tefillin he showed to his humble one, and this refers to Moshe Rabbeinu, and this is referencing the medrash that after the sin of the golden calf, when Moshe Rabbeinu is pleading for Hashem to save the Jewish people and not to destroy them, as Hashem is threatening to do after this terrible lapse, 40 days after the receiving the Torah at Har Sinai, and the hymn sings that that Moshe Rabbeinu is referring to the point where Moshe Rabbeinu is asking Hashem, please explain to me your ways. And Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you cannot see my face and live, but I will put you in a cleft in the rock and pass not my face, but you will see the back of me, and I will pass you by like that. And according to the Medrash, Hashem showed was wearing tefillin, and there was the knot at the back of the tefillin, that this is what Moshe Rabbeinu saw. And what do we see? That this is the connection when these two separate strips of leather come together, but they only come together at the back. You can't see them. They're completely separate at the front, but they're joined at the back. And it is this joining, this from a communication. And it's interesting to note that in Ivrit we have this lehit kasher, is to communicate with somebody, and I think that the basis of love is a complete contrast to sort of the romantic notions that perhaps we associate with modern connotations and understanding of love. But this is based on a real deep communication between two people, and using that communication to build a relationship. And when this is done in the right way, this can give us levels of cooperation and closeness that form the foundation of true love. And I think that what we see in Vayigash, the drawing near of Yehuda, he's drawing near to Yosef, but really he is, I think, drawing near to this idea of showing us that love, true love, is based on this kesher, this bond, this communication. And it is in using those words to actually describe the relationship between his father and Binyamin that Yehuda is showing us what kesher means and how we are able to appreciate other people and the paths that their lives may take. And it may be that my father will love somebody else more, their soul will be bound, but that doesn't jeopardize my special relationship, my place in the world. And I don't need my insecurities to take away from my ability to communicate and form close relationships with other people. I think we see it here in this week's Sedra, and I think we also see it so very beautifully in the relationship between Yonasan and David. And I think that this is the book of Bereshit is preparing us. The book of the family is preparing us for the book of the nation, which we are rapidly approaching, and that is the book of Shemos. And I think it's really crucial that we learn this lesson of this deep, true love. And it's very interesting to note that the Torah commands us to love our neighbor as ourselves. This is coming later in the book of Vayikra, and also to love Hashem. Interestingly enough, I think that, as I mentioned at the beginning, kesher and shema, teaching us to love the kesher between we have one human being to another, and the love of Hashem that we read about in Shema also makes an appearance in this week's Sedra. And this is a bit later on when Yosef actually meets Yaakov. We have the uniting of Yosef and Yaakov, and this happens in chapter 46, verse 29. And the pasuk reads, "Vayesar Yosef merkavto," and Yosef harnessed his chariot, Vayal likras Yisrael, and he went up to meet Yisrael of his father, Goshna, in the land of Goshen. Vayera elav, and he appeared to him, Vayipol al tzavarov, and he fell on his neck, Vayevk al tzavarov Ode, and he wept on his neck excessively. And so this is describing Yosef's reaction when he sees his father Yaakov for the first time after 22 years. And Rashi picks up on this. Vayevk al tzavarov Ode, and he wept on his neck excessively. Loshen harbos bechia. This means excessive weeping. Okay. Right. Here too, Afkan, Hirba v'Hosef bevchi. Yosef increased and added in his crime, Yoser al harogel, more than what was normal. Aval Yaakov lo nofal al Savarai Yosef, but Yaakov did not fall on Yosef's neck, velo noshko, nor did he kiss him. V'omru Rabbeinu, our rabbi said that he did not do so, shehaya kore es shema, because he was reciting Shema. And this is something that that on some levels is very difficult to understand, that at this moment of the greatest joy, this reunion between father and beloved, long lost, most precious son Yosef, instead of channeling all of that love into that human dynamic and manifestation, Yaakov, as it were, uses it as a template and takes that powerful emotion, and it says, this is what I am transferring, this is how I am applying this strong, overwhelming feeling of love. This is how I am loving Hashem. Because when we say Shema, when the rabbis tell us that Yaakov said Shema, it doesn't mean that he doesn't love his son. But because when the Torah tells us that we must love Hashem, how do we do that? How can we? Hashem is abstract, Hashem is infinite. We need techniques. This is a very difficult challenge to really take that very human emotion and apply it to Hashem. So I think what Rashi, by quoting the rabbis and this understanding that Yaakov did not reciprocate, as it were, with that human excessive reaction that is expressed when Yosef meets Yaakov, and Yaakov is taking that overwhelming emotion that he's feeling, and he is, as it were, dedicating it to Hashem. And I think that in the book of instruction that the Torah is, that we are receiving this masterclass in tutorial, the book of Bereshit, which through real human relationships is showing us that the paths of life will take us in all sorts of twists and turns, but we have the examples, we have the words, we have the events that happened to our fathers and our mothers, and we are able to learn from them, and we are able to apply them in our lives. And I think that these very powerful emotions, and although we refer to Yosef HaTzadik, and Yosef is the paradigm of the person who is able to overcome his natural instincts, and perhaps that's why he merits the title of Yosef HaTzadik. He overcomes his instinct with Potiphar's wife. He overcomes his instinct perhaps to take revenge against his brother and instead he says, no, it wasn't your fault. Hashem has orchestrated all this so that I will be able to help. I will be able to help my family. I will be able to help the entire world. And Yosef is the paradigm of that, of overcoming the instincts. And I think that the message is that this is actually something that we are all capable of doing, which doesn't mean it's easy, but we can do it. But I think it is Yehuda in this week's Sedra that is just showing us that we can see through this concept of kesher, we can see what it means to love another person, to have this close bond, this close connection. And in this way, we are able to form relationships within the family and beyond, and create a society where we are going to have optimal relationships with everybody around us. And that is really a goal worth working very hard for. Thank you very much for listening, and wishing you Shabbat Shalom.